NFL team.
Touchdown. The route, and Randy Moss, without even really being able to run, as he shoots the moon to the
pass, pumps to the left, 8 seconds left. He gets away from the pressure, fires to the end zone. It's caught! It's Greg Lewis! Oh my heavens! Greg Lewis's first catch has given the Minnesota.
Four, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Hey, what's up, Minnesota Vikings fans and potentially Chicago Bears fans joining the show, because we have a very special guest today on House Calls with Skulldog, brought to you by Minnesota Sports Talk. We have NFL Outdated joining us today. Please follow him on Twitter for your Chicago Bears talk, and of course, talking that trash against the Packers. We can all get down with that. Welcome, man. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Always good to talk football, especially when we got a big rivalry coming up. I'm excited, and I spent about 10 years of my life in Minnesota, and I actually even went to the training camp when it was in Mankato. So I am, familiar with those Vikings.
Yeah, and I've grown up pretty much my entire life in Illinois, and now I live in the Chicago burbs, so I am very familiar. Got my pulse on the Bears. My family's all Bears fans. I'm the only lone Vikings fan. And this guy snagged me on his show at the beginning of the year, and we've been talking ever since, every week here. And we got a good thing going, and glad to bring you on and talk some Bears, because that's one thing we're trying to do more, is get some more guests on the show.
And I tell people one thing we have in common with Bears fans is we both hate the Packers. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
For
and
sure.
The Lions now.
I always tell people that if division wise, if I'm going to root for a team that to win the Super Bowl that's not my team, this is how I rank it. I would say, hey, I wouldn't mind seeing the Lions first. I'd say the Vikings second. I wouldn't mind them win the Super Bowl.
And the Packers never.
No, the third I wouldn't mind seeing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If anybody remembers them from the when they were in the
NFL
Central.
Yep.
I have it this way. I root against anybody that hasn't won a Super Bowl yet.
Yeah.
I root against them because I
know
we're
like
win one before us.
Yeah. If the Lions won a Super Bowl before the Vikings.
For instance, I was happy as crap when when Atlanta was lost after being up 28-3. I was excited. But I was super mad that the Eagles won, especially in Minneapolis after they beat us. But yeah, what are we, the winningest franchise or third winningest franchise since the Super Bowl era, and we're the only team in the top 15 that hasn't won a Super Bowl. So
I think every other team like around the Vikings has multiple Super Bowls, but
it's ridiculous.
And we have like a huge inferiority complex as Vikings fans, because that's what every Bears fan, every Packers fan throws in our face is, how many rings do you have, right?
85.
Well, how many rings do you have? And it's like, they just kind of want to get that monkey off your back. And if your little brother, the Lions, gets that monkey off their back after sucking for 33 years straight, my entire life, they've been really bad, and they find magic and just go win a Super Bowl, it's going to be a hard pill to swallow. So
I think the last time I had you on, and I asked you if you had the Super Bowl Shuffle on VHS in your VHS.
Every Bears fan does. It's
absolutely have it. Yep.
Code. Yeah, my in-laws have it too. But let's start the show off here. So it's really interesting between these two franchises that they both kind of started a rebuild about the same time in 2022, when the Chicago Bears hired Matt Eberflus. The Minnesota Vikings went with Kevin O'Connell, and there was two different paths here, where the Vikings hiring their GM at the time, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, we're going through a competitive rebuild, and we're pretty sure that was mandated by the ownership saying, hey, we think we have talent here. We want to continue to win. We don't want to tank. But it wasn't a secret at the time that the Vikings preferred Ryan Poles as the guy that they wanted to bring in and be their GM before the Bears took him. And Ryan Poles, first thing he did in Chicago was he tore it down to the studs. And so that was a really good contrast of two franchises on the same timeline. Let's see how this shakes out. And our GM, Kwesi Dofamensa, actually said, statistically, you have a better chance to come out better on the other side when you tear it down. But that's not the route the Vikings are taking. And so I listen to Matthew Collar a lot. He's a beat writer for the Minnesota Vikings. And he's like, we're going to keep track of this and kind of see this through. He had Courtney Cronin on his show this week, and they were kind of revisiting this. And so far, it looks like the Vikings are a little bit ahead of that. But that doesn't mean that the Chicago Bears by any means cannot catch up. But it's pretty clear that one team made the right coaching hire and the other team did not.
That's fair. Absolutely fair. And part of it, I think, is the ownership kind of sticking their nose in with that, and the Bears have failed in that for many years. And so, obviously, when you look at the Vikings, Kevin O'Connell is head and shoulders above any coach the Bears have had, So, yeah, I'm definitely jealous of that part.
Now, wasn't it? I think I discussed this before with you. It's like you had Eberflus, you had the opportunity to part ways with them and then get a new coach, maybe offensive coach, and that to pair him up with Caleb Williams. And he didn't get in and then he got rid of Justin Fields because he didn't draft him, and he kept the coach he hired. Otherwise, it's that's waving the white flag of defeat that you hired the wrong guy. Do you feel like that was the situation still? Like, he didn't want to get rid of the coach that he hired. He got rid of the quarterback. I know you were fond of Fields, but you ended up getting the first round pick. You think the pairing was just the wrong thing to do? You think he should have still cut ways with his head coach and get an offensive minded coach in there? There's talk that you could have got Johnson, the OC from Detroit.
Yeah, absolutely. And the case for keeping Eberflus was continuity, and really it really hasn't panned out at all. And you get the beat writers in Chicago who are counting down the press conferences that they'll have left with Eberflus. It's comical. So yeah, I mean, I would have liked to see them go with offensive coach. It was kind of good and bad last year when the way we kind of finished things out. Eberflus, he was the defensive coordinator, and he was calling some good games and really kind of coming through, and that I think solidified him to get another chance, another year. Although it's kind of stunted things, right? I mean, it's been clear. It was clear last year, and it's clear this year that he just does not know how to manage a game. He does not know how to win a game, and he also, the coaches he's hired just have not been able to command a room. You get Shane Waldron, and that was the thing too. Obviously, you have a coach, come in here for a year. It was almost a lame duck. It was tough to really get a good offensive coordinator to come in, and so now I'm actually happy. I think we've got an offensive coordinator who's doing some different things. It's a little bit too little too late right now. Obviously, we've got a lot left in the season to really prove some things, but I think obviously it's a foregone conclusion that Eberflus is gone, and I'm hoping it hasn't stunted Caleb's growth. I don't think it has. Obviously, it stinks where we're at this season, though.
Is the GM tied to him, or does he get an extension, or does he move on, or keep going?
Yeah, I think he does. I think just with the trade that he made with the Panthers and a lot of the free agent signings that he's been able to make. Obviously, the worst one, Nate Davis, the offensive lineman, is kind of the really bad mark on his record. He's an offensive lineman. He should be able to evaluate offensive linemen. So
the trade for Chase Claypool wasn't great.
Right, absolutely, and that's kind of almost a footnote now with kind of what we have wide receivers and stuff, having DJ Moore and Roman Duze. But you're right. Yeah. I mean, that was not good at the time either, because, that second round pick would have been, very nice to have in this rebuild. And so, he's made enough franchise altering positive moves to continue at least one more coaching hire. But yeah, until the ownership really gets out of the way, and lets the football people make these moves, we're gonna be the same place. And presumably having Kevin Warren there is supposed to have helped. Obviously you guys have some experience with Kevin Warren and what he did for the the stadium in Minneapolis. So but obviously there's the structure is there. It's just I mean, we have to make the right call this next coaching hire. Otherwise, we're done.
When do you take over the North and never give it back? What year is that? When you take over the North and never give it back? What year is that?
TB determined.
2025.
Yeah. So here's the thing with what you just talked about. I agree with everything you just said. The next hire is absolutely crucial for the career of Caleb Williams. It's everything. And when you look at the Vikings, I think that, yes, you need that quarterback to come in and be that franchise guy. But when you look at the Vikings, they had Kevin O'Connell in place, which I think was everything for drafting a quarterback. And to me, it just seems like this is a guy who knows how to groom a quarterback and take it slow and make sure that they're ready and whatnot, and give them a scheme to be successful with the tools that they possess. And that's just not what happened in Chicago. It was, Caleb's the guy. He's going to come in day one. You're going to save this franchise. By the way, here's Shane Waldron, the guy that Seattle didn't really want. Yeah, but I'm just saying, like you guys need to get that guy in the door, whoever that is. And in my opinion, it's just nice to have your head coach be that guy so that he can't get poached. Because if you bring in a stud offensive coordinator, he's going to get a job, and then Caleb's learning another offense, and you don't want that situation. That was the Kirk Cousins situation.
We had like 5, 6.
Yeah, every single year. So, I mean, it sucks because Caleb came in here, and somebody used the analogy of he's been learning Spanish all year. Next year, he's going to have to learn French. And it's like he's going to be a rookie in a way all over again next year, which sucks. So I do think in a way that it stunted him. I don't think by any means that he's ruined. But it did stunt his growth. I mean, from what could have been. So, as a Vikings fan, would I like to see Ben Johnson go to Chicago? No, I wouldn't. There's no guarantee that Ben Johnson is going to be a good head coach. We've seen plenty of offensive coordinators who are excellent offensive coordinators kind of struggle being head coaches, like the guy Callahan in Tennessee. We're seeing that right now. But I think Ben Johnson's a great coach. Hell, Kingsbury could be a good coach for Caleb. But yeah, it's very clear that they need to move on from Flus.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear my guy Seventh Letter on our podcast, the Freezing Four. He talks about Ben Johnson sometimes being too cute with his calls and stuff. So it's interesting, to hear kind of that side of it. But obviously, he's kind of the hot name right now, and we do need that offensive coordinator. Obviously, offensive head coach to really kind of. We've got all the weapons now. So, yeah.
You need the offensive line. So you're going to put some resources there. The Bears have a ton of free agency money to spend. I think they're just ahead of the Vikings for next year. I think it's like a couple $1 million apart, but both teams have a lot of resources to spend. The Bears are going to have an extra high second-round pick from that Panthers trade that they made when the Panthers, for some reason, traded up for Bryce Young. But yeah, I mean, it's just fun to parallel these two teams on the same timeline, and hopefully both teams still on the upswing, and we'll catch the Lions, hopefully, fingers crossed, kind of on their downswing soon as they're spending all this money, keeping their team intact, getting older. If you ask me, like just looking at the teams, if you ask me, I think both the Vikings and the Bears have the potential to keep kind of ascending, to whereas I think the Packers have probably the best chance of taking a step back in the division, like going forward the next couple of years. I mean, just seeing what we've seen out of Jordan Love this year, I don't think he's like Hall of Fame quarterback. He's good. He's good, but I don't think he's great. I don't think he's going to live up to the contract that they gave him.
And you've been cracking on him a little bit on Twitter there, Andy.
Oh,
tell
yeah.
us what you think of Love.
Oh yeah, I went to the draft and last year and had a homemade Jordan Love is mid T-shirt, and so got a chance to have Packer fans just kind of give me a hard time about that, and obviously he had a great half season, great end of the season, and he's got a lot of tools, right? But you look at it and he's obviously, I mean. He still has all the tools, but you look at it, and I love to poke fun at Packer fans and saying he's regressing because he just throws off his back foot and he makes all these Favre like mistakes,
YOLO balls.
Yeah, I mean one that you guys know that kind of a Paul Allen. I remember him screaming about versus the Saints, right? Just like throwing it up, and I think when you talk about the Packers, I mean. It begins and ends with the quarterback. And, I mean, he's good, but is he able to overcome some of the other issues? And now I am worried kind of about Josh Jacobs. And, obviously they have a decent line. But when you look at the Packers, if Jordan Love is not the guy, they're paying him a lot of money to just be average suspect. I mean, I would take it. And, obviously I love Caleb Williams. Obviously I love him more than JJ McCarthy. JJ McCarthy has potential. I've not been a JJ McCarthy fan, but I would rather be in the spot that the Vikings are at with a younger potential go-to quarterback than where the Packers are. And, just kind of like, is Love still the guy or not? So, with what you have, I would rather be in your shoes than the Packers, honestly.
Yeah, since you brought up JJ, just kind of give you how I felt about JJ throughout the whole process. So throughout the college season, I was a big Michael Penix guy. I was a big Washington fan. I was bandwagon, watching them go all the way, playing against JJ McCarthy. And during the season, I was kind of like everybody else, like JJ throws the ball 10 times a game. They just run it down your throat. Like this guy's along for the ride. And then there's a guy on Vikings Twitter, Thor Nystrom. I don't know if you know Thor Nystrom, big draft guy. Works for Matthew Berry now, I think, with his company doing some draft stuff.
And did an hour-long show with him. He went through every single quarterback.
So he was huge on JJ McCarthy, and I was like, okay, what am I not seeing here? And so I was, he opened my eyes, and I was like, okay, like I got to a place where I'd be okay if the Vikings took JJ McCarthy. Just don't trade the farm up for JJ McCarthy.
Yeah.
So he comes in, and he's kind of struggling in OTAs. With accuracy issues and stuff, and I'm like, oh shit. But then he turns the corner in training camp and just starts looking really good, and had a good preseason game, threw a bad pick against the Raiders in the preseason game, but then he came back with like a few touchdowns and just got raving reviews from the beat reporters throughout training camp, from Kevin O'Connell, who's obviously he's the guy that I trust, by the way. So we're all excited to see what this guy's going to be. But like you said, it's all about that rookie quarterback contract and setting up your team to build an absolute roster, and you're in the same position with Caleb Williams as your quarterback. And so when I was watching Caleb in college, I was like, oh my God, that's Patrick Mahomes, right? I expect to see him come in and do all this stuff. And you kind of saw that in the preseason. He was doing that. He was rolling out, throwing over the defense and throwing jump balls to Odunze. And it was like, wow, this dude's going to be super good. And then the regular season happens, and it's just been a complete nightmare. And I think, part of that is your offensive coordinator who got fired. And part of that is that this is a rookie quarterback with a bad offensive line, and the NFL's hard. Like, it's just hard, especially in your rookie season.
Yeah, and I would push back a little bit about that. I wouldn't say it's been a complete nightmare. Like from Caleb's perspective, he's definitely had games where he's played good. He's definitely had games where he's played terrible. Like where he's just missed some of the layups, some of the easy passes, and things like that. And I think, I mean, having a different offensive coordinator now, who he trusts a little bit better, obviously, than Waldron, that helps, right? And I think just getting comfortable, within the speed and everything of the NFL and getting on same page with some of his wide receivers. It does, kind of stink because they should be doing this, throughout the training camp, but really like, I know it's like kind of harped on with like Packers that they always let their quarterbacks wait, right? But they kind of like, put themselves in a difficult spot with Love, right? They waited
Wasted
and
the entire contract.
they did. And so I think there's really only some things you can learn as an NFL quarterback by being in there, and you compare, obviously, I mean, I would fit Caleb for a Hall of Fame jacket, because that's just me. But you compare him to Peyton Manning. He had a horrible rookie year, right?
Mhm.
And so, but he obviously learned, and that's what it takes. Like, the, these quarterbacks, most of them have the talent, their first round quarterbacks, but do they have what's between the years and all the adjustments and things like that? And I think Caleb has it. Obviously, we'll see if JJ has it. I mean, he's got talent, he's got the keys, but obviously he's got to prove it.
What's the evidence that you, when you say Caleb has it, like you're totally sold on it? Because I see a guy taking like 9 sacks in a game, like that's unacceptable.
Oh yeah, and obviously there's certain things that he needs to improve on. Obviously, it hurts that we've had a lot of line issues. Part of that's on him, obviously, kind of being able to call out protections and be able to, control the game that way. And
Throw
that.
hot, things like that.
Well, and I have a question about that because people have been putting out 2 just stats where he stands out like he's the huge outlier. Is that he runs and he's avoiding sacks. He's like dead last, like way out here. And then the other one is he's the worst accuracy after like 15 yards, like something like that. I don't know if that's true, but I was a recent thing. I saw that today. Kind of talk to that. Is that a thing? Like, is he really? Is he holding the ball too long? The accuracy, is he not knowing the play, or what's the situation?
A little bit of both. As far as holding the ball too long, with Shane Waldron, and then also a little bit of just his accuracy. And he had some issues in college, right? And so he's just this immense talent, and it's just kind of putting it all together and slowing it down. And I think we're starting to see that in the Packer game. Obviously, everyone thought it was going to be a blowout, but he really controlled that game when you watched it, and obviously it was almost Justin Fields-esque with some of the runs that he had to do, but it was just how clutch he was on some of those plays, and that's what, like the 3rd and 19, escaping, and what of course I love Justin Fields, but he just didn't see the whole field.
Yep.
He would tuck it and run, and what Caleb did, rather than tuck it and run, he knew he needed big chunky yards, and so he stayed in the pocket. He stayed, looking downfield, and that's what he does. He looks downfield for the play, and so that's what gives me hope. And he was able to convert there, and then convert on the 4th down as well. Just some really clutch plays. It's a crazy stat that basically Caleb Williams has led 2 game-winning drives this year.
But lost,
and they lost both.
And the Bears are 0-2.
Right.
So
that's I love the responses people get. So you're claiming victory on losses now.
So, speaking to that though, the Bears are 4-6. They could easily be 6-4. Okay, with those 2 games, they have a positive point differential. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL. This is a much better team than the vibes are demonstrating right now. The vibes are terrible. They fired their OC. Flus is there just as a formality right now. But I just want to go over some of these defense. So this is the Bears defense right now. They are 12th in total yards. They are 9th in passing yards per game, 23rd in rushing yards per game. So they're a little bit of a run funnel. You can kind of run on them. They're 7th in points per game, and their 3rd down percentage is 4th per game. So, I mean, these are just fantastic numbers. When you look at their offense, it's not surprising, but they're 25th in total yards. They're 30th in passing yards, 22nd in running, 22nd in points, and 30th in 3rd down percentage. So that obviously that's why their OC got fired. But the point is, I mean, and this is going to transition us into breaking down the game here, but the point is that there's a 3.5 point spread with the Vikings being favored. This is a Bears team that honestly should have just won that Packers game. It was you can't talk me into that block being a legal play, even though the NFL came back and said that they reviewed it and it's legal. I saw like 3 different rules broken. To the points that you said, Caleb looked composed that entire game with the first game back with his new OC. And sometimes that happens. Like the players kind of get that boost for the first game back. But regardless, this is going to be a tough game at Soldier Field this Sunday. And I'm excited to see it play out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's been the when you look at Brian Flores, I mean, he's going to throw a lot of things at Caleb, and that's going to be one of the big tests, right? And I think what I like about Caleb is rising to the occasion, right? And I think some of his issues have been some of the easy layups, the easy plays. But when you look at kind of, some of the more difficult things, he's been able to process quickly, all those things. And so it's just kind of putting it all together, and so obviously, what Brian Flores does defensively, it's going to be a huge test. But what I like about the new offensive coordinator is kind of like just letting Caleb play and just kind of like more free, more like he's supposed to, and I think that's, what Shane Waldron was just kind of just trying to, fit a square peg in a round hole. Just let Caleb be Caleb and let him learn on the fly. And that's what, I think last year I did, obviously in the first game, the Packers Bears, Matt LaFleur, I like him as a coach. He put Jordan Love in the best possible, spots to grow and to learn and make solid plays to get his confidence up. And I think with this new offensive coordinator, I think he's, been able to do that already in one game.
Yeah, it's just put your quarterback in a situation to make the easy play, right? To not have to win it on, do everything on your own. So talking about Brian Flores' defense, let's go into the Vikings numbers on defense here. So they are 10th in total defense, 28th in passing yards. A little bit of that is kind of skewed because in the beginning of the season, they were getting up by so much that teams had to throw the ball. Like in that Packers game, they got 28-0. But they do give up some yardage in the air. So, Caleb could get some yards in the air. But like I said, they've been really, really good, the Vikings defense, the last couple of weeks here. Will Levis got that 98-yard ball on them. They ran like this aggressive blitz type play.
Which he hadn't been doing. And I don't know if we talked about that on Tuesday, but it's like we did. We took the 2 times we decided to blitz on 3rd and like 11, they beat us. And it was because we blitzed. And before, all season, he was sitting back and letting him catch it underneath and tackle him and so, yeah, it was crazy. He went against his normal game plan on those 2 plays. So hopefully he doesn't do it against you.
That really skewed the game in terms of like passing yards last week. The Vikings are number 1, only giving up 74 yards of rushing per game. So it's going to be kind of tough to run against them.
And we thought this was not going to be our strength, which is crazy.
Right. Going into the season, we thought we were going to be one of the worst rushing defense. So I think they're just kind of, Flores just calling an absolute game on 1st and 2nd down, just with a bunch of run blitzes. We actually blitz a lot more on 1st and 2nd down. So the way to beat the Vikings is the quick passing game on 1st and 2nd down, catch us in a blitz and try to get some yak off of that. And then 3rd down percentage, we're 8th. So when you look at these 2 defenses, they're very similar in a lot of these numbers, except for you're kind of flipping the run funnel and the pass funnel of the Vikings and the Bears. But that is why this game has an over-under of only 39.5 points. Basically, to me, it's like who can score 17 because you pretty much win the game.
Yeah, you look at last year's games, it was 19-13 Bears and then 12-10 – or sorry, 19-13 Vikings and then 12-10 Bears. Yeah, so there were a lot of points last year even. And obviously, you had the Pasternak, Dobbs, and rotating quarterbacks. But we also had, Fields hurt. And either way, you got defenses that are better, I think, than even last year.
Yeah, I think I would agree on both sides. How has your defensive line been outside of Montez Sweat and generating pressure? Because I honestly don't know.
Yeah, so we have been better, and I think it begins and ends. Well, obviously Montez Sweat, right? But Jervon Dexter has been huge this year, and he's really kind of grown into that role and really stepped up. So we've had that. The one issue that we're going to have the rest of this year is Andrew Billings, being injured and just being that run stopper. So but when you talk about pressure wise, I think obviously Sweat and Jervon Dexter really, that's been better than it has been in the previous years.
So the Vikings' forte on offense is Kevin O'Connell's a great offensive schemer in the passing game. In the running game, not so much. His expected points added with the running game has been negative for most of his stay here. Aaron Jones was having a really good season early on. He's been a little bit banged up lately. And then our left tackle, Christian Darrisaw, got hurt at the Rams game. He was our best run blocker. And then also we have switched our right guard from Ed Ingram to what's his name?
Dalton
Reisner, who's a better pass blocker than run blocker. So both guys, Cam Robinson and Dalton Reisner, who are new to the line, they are more so pass protectors. And so we have not seen much push in the run game as of late. It'll be interesting to see, does that change against the Bears team that's been a little bit leaky in the run? But that's just not the Vikings' forte. So this game might be lining up for the Bears defense actually matching up pretty well against this Vikings offense, with being really good against the pass, not as great against the run. But the Vikings, A, aren't usually as committed to the run, and B, aren't great at running the football. It's just going to determine, like, what's going to make the difference is, does Aaron Jones pop a few here and there?
Yeah, and obviously he did, when he was with the Packers last year versus the Bears. I mean, catching out of the backfield, I think that was huge in some of those games. When you look at the Bears secondary, Tyreek Stevenson, Kyler Gordon, and Jalen Johnson, are top. They're right up there in the NFL. Jalen Johnson's one of the best corners.
Give us some locker room material this
week. He's like first team All Pro. He's that good.
Yeah, he is. And so it'll be interesting to see what O'Connell does with Jefferson. I mean, if it's if so, Jalen Johnson has not necessarily all year been on the number one wide receiver. They've kind of left him in one area, and so that's kind of been a problem. So we'll see what Eberflus does that way. Been a problem now with Jaquan Brisker being out with concussion on IR, and now even Elijah Hicks, the strong safety, is out. So I believe Jonathan Owens might kind of fill in there. So that'll be, that could be something the Vikings can exploit. But obviously, Jefferson's, the best wide receiver in the game, right? And you've got Addison, some of these other wide receivers. But if we can shut Jefferson down, I think Sam Darnold maybe he's going to try to throw it up to Jefferson, and we could, pick Darnold off once or twice this week.
Yeah, it's probably going to happen. I mean, just looking at Sam Darnold, he's thrown for 2,400 yards, 19 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. He's thrown for 5 touchdowns and 5 interceptions in his last, I think, 3 games. Now, last week he did not throw an interception.
Take a big step forward this last game.
I think he threw 3 touchdowns, if I recall correctly. When you look at the 3 games the Vikings have just played, they swept the AFC South, but they didn't do so in pretty fashion. A lot of people are kind of pissed off that they didn't get the style points and beat up on these teams a little bit more like the Lions did. We played the Colts at home, and the Vikings, although putting up a ton of yards, that was a primetime game, so I'm sure you saw that one, but I think they were shut out the first half, didn't score any points, or maybe just scored like 3 points or something. But then the second half, they kind of put it together. But they had like 400 yards of offense in that game. Then they go
42 minutes of time of possession, which is the only team to go over 40 the entire year.
Possessing the football. They do the same thing against the Jaguars, where they go up and down the field, but they throw 3 red zone interceptions. Sam Darnold just couldn't stop throwing the other team the ball. And so they barely win against the Jags because of that, despite completely dominating the football game. And then against the Titans, it wasn't really close, but it could have been like a 30-13 game based on how well the Vikings have played, both offensively, defensively, but just little mistakes here and there. So I say all that to say that Sam Darnold has been hot and cold, And he plays when what Sam Darnold's looked like this year is a pretty good quarterback, making good decisions routinely, great arm, pretty good accuracy, but he has like that 2, 3, maybe 4 play sequence in a game where you're like, oof, there's Sam. Like, don't do that. You know what I mean? It's just he short circuits and he does it. Like, it's like, can you just play one clean game?
And we had one of those come from behind victories that ended up in a loss, like the Bears against the Lions, where we were down by 2 scores and we can't and twice we came back. Then they went down by 2 scores again, and then we came back and took the lead, and we're 1 first down away from winning that game. He overthrows his receiver, who was open, and then they kick a field goal. So he has games like that, and then he had like clinching play against the 49ers. I think it was another game where he had a nice clinching play. That was the Packers clinching drive against them. They never had the ball except for the first drive where they had a chance to win, go ahead. So that whole Packers game, they never had a chance to go ahead with the ball. He made that possible at the end of the game. So he has that in him, and it's crazy. But then those 3-game stretch where you get in the red zone, here you go, have the ball.
Yeah.
And it's not even close.
Right.
It's like these were such bad reads, such bad throws. It's like, which guy was he throwing it to on the other team? Which guy on the other team did he think was open that he wanted him to have the ball? And he's had several plays like that. But, at least going into this game, a little momentum for him because he did look really I think it might have been one of his better games.
It was his best PFF graded game in his career. But I say all that to say that against this team, this matchup, this is going to be one of those matchups where the team who makes the fewer mistakes will win the ball game. I don't think you want Sam Darnold as your quarterback in a game like that because he's a guy that probably will make a mistake or two. And for that reason, I'm a little bit nervous going into this game. So if I had to put money on it, I think that Sam Darnold throws 1 or 2 picks, and it could cost the Vikings this game. Absolutely could. The question is the Vikings defense good enough to overcome it? Time will tell.
Yeah, I got a question for you. Yeah. DeAndre Swift is shown as questionable. How's his health?
I think he was full.
Yeah, so he's still questionable, but yeah, he was a full participant in practice. So you know how that goes. Obviously, I think he might be a little bit tender. And obviously that groin, I believe it was. I think that's that's got to be tough. But one of our best runner actually versus the Packers was Rashawn Johnson, and he is showing that he can really get some of those tough yards, and I think that's what we're going to need to do to really grind it out and extend plays, and then obviously with Caleb's wheels as well. I think that helped, but DeAndre, he's the big play back, and so I think just that mix of the two. So hopefully DeAndre is relatively healthy, but I mean, if we rely on Rashawn, I'm good with that as well.
Yeah, Rashawn's been nice. Like he's a big, powerful back. I like watching him run the ball. If in my opinion, just eye test watching the Vikings, they've done pretty well against the running games where they try to send everything up the middle. Where you can get the Vikings a little bit is that stretch run with the one cut and go. Gibbs burned us for a really long touchdown in the Lions game. That's more Swift's game. So I am a little bit nervous with that. When he was with the
Eagles, he just destroyed us.
Yeah, he's kind of a Vikings killer.
So what you're going to see too, obviously with him, but and maybe we'll see this early on to see really how healthy he is. If they almost do DJ Moore in that type of role, because obviously he's huge with the yards after the catch. I mean, you get the ball, get him with the ball in his hand in space, and he can make some plays. And I think they really started to kind of do that a little bit more with some of the screens and actually effective screens and not the screens that they have done in the past last year. But get DJ Moore the ball, and maybe he does more of that kind of so more of the Swift role if Swift isn't fully healthy.
How is he doing as far as not having the season he probably thinks he should be having? Like he's like on pace for like a less than 800 yards and receiving. Is he a pretty team guy, or I mean he was traded for, so.
Yeah, absolutely. He is a team guy. Obviously, he's one that this year you've seen a lot of frustration, but I think it's in the moment, and obviously I think it's frustration from the offensive coordinator and the coaching, and he is not, hid his feelings necessarily about the coaching and just he's kind of tried to play a little bit coy with Matt Eberflus and things like that, but you could tell he's not a fan of the coaching. But obviously, he wants to win, and that was the expectation this year, and the pieces are there. And so, like, I think all of these players, like Montez Sweat, they're pissed because, everything was set, and especially you get two just, just heartbreaking losses like that. I mean, if we're at 6-4, we're in a lot better position to head into this gauntlet that is the division and coming up games. And so, obviously, 4-6 is not where they want to be, and they know it's a tough road. But DJ Moore he's a team guy. He wants the team to win.
Yeah. So anything offense or defense that we haven't really talked about that you wanted to cover?
So obviously, Keenan Allen, I think he was questionable. He's been hurt, and I have to see if so he rolled his ankle at Friday's practice, leaving him questionable for Sunday's game. But they're hopeful that he will return. I think just continuing to see, obviously, with the new offense coordinator and getting him with the ball in his hands, and even just trying to use him with some of those screens blocking as well. So I think that's really going to be the thing. And I think just one of the big things right now, obviously, Matt Eberflus has, obviously he's on the hot seat. And I wanted to point out this week, obviously, the last time that Matt Eberflus was on the hot seat last year, week 5 versus Washington, and the Bears did end up winning 40-20. Justin Fields, 4 touchdown passes. DJ Moore, 230 yards, 3 touchdowns. Even got Cole Kmet on the ball. Obviously, now it's a different offensive coordinator, but I think for better or for worse, when Matt Eberflus is up against it, he's able to give just enough to keep him around, and so I think.
Zimmer 2019.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So
I guess we should pick the game at this time. So I'll let the guest of honor pick the game first. How do you see this game turning out?
Yeah, I think you're right. It is going to be the defense and is going to really kind of control the game. And I think in the end, it's going to be Sam Darnold making some of those mistakes. It's going to allow Caleb Williams and the Bears to have shorter field. And I think, it's going to come down to, Carlos Santos making a field goal, not being blocked. Obviously, the special teams is going to be huge this week from what happened last week. And the run game is going to be huge to try to hopefully get something going and just control the line of scrimmage, control the game. And so I think the Bears are going to win. And I can't even remember what I picked on my podcast, but I'm going to think it's going to be like a 20-13 game. Bears going to win.
Dave, you want to give us your score, your prediction?
Sure. And usually my predictions are golden. Pretty much a lock. So
we called a couple good ones this year. We called a blowout in the Texans.
Oh, dude, we called turnovers.
And,
yeah.
And we weren't really being homers. We were just like, we kind of see this, like it makes sense to us.
I don't call blowouts anymore. Although we did kind of think we were going to win a little bit bigger last week. What were you going to
call a blowout against the Jags, and I was like, oof.
It's quarterbacks. It's such an interesting thing. Obviously, last year, with Stroud, he was just lighting the league on fire, and now he's just kind of like come back to earth. And
league always figures you out.
Yeah. So who knows?
Of course, they're not going to figure out JJ McCarthy. There we go, right there. Knock on press particle board. So I do think I think it's going to be one of those methodical games where, but but Sam Darnold, much like last week, doesn't make mistakes. I think he builds on that because if you remember when the Rams, JJ McCarthy, Kevin O'Connell was being interviewed by Purple Daily, and he was asked, I think Kirk Cousins should, be risky, not worry about throwing picks. And he goes, well, but the Rams, we didn't win a game in November, and, they had a bye in 3 games they lost. We, led the league in interceptions that year or in that time, or turnovers in that time. And I think their quarterback Stafford threw 17 the entire year. That we had to address that and then to go on and win the Super Bowl. Well, that's what just happened with Sam Darnold, was those 3 bad games where he was throwing picks, almost cost us the game. Well, we were moving the ball offensively. And this last week, I think we came up against a really good defense, and especially against the run. I do feel like it's going to be a methodical, don't make mistakes, Sam Darnold that we all hope for coming in the season. Early on, he was lighting us on fire, though. It was a big surprise, but I think he's back to, hey, let's keep this under control. I'm not going to throw picks in the red zone. I'm going to live for another day. I think we're just too much for you. I think it's going to be 24-17. I don't pick blowouts anymore, but we move the ball. We get our scores. I don't think it's going to at all be out of control at any point. I think it's just going to be one of those workmanlike attitudes. And we've been winning in Chicago lately, and that is new to us, and we want to keep that going.
Okay.
I was going to say, so, on my podcast, I said, well, if the Bears lose to the Vikings, I will drive the pink slips up to Hallis Hall myself. Because I think if the Bears lose to the Vikings, and especially if Eberflus proves that he's, not the guy, they just got to move on and maybe see what they have with the offensive coordinator at, calling the shots as well. So this is a crucial game, I think, for Eberflus. And obviously it really could go either way.
It just feels weird to me, though, that that's the sentiment. Yes, you don't want to lose to the Vikings, but they're 8-2 football team, one of the best NFC football teams. If you lose to the Patriots at home and only score 3 points, get the pink slips, right? We saw that.
Mm-hmm.
The Vikings are favorited in this game. Yes, Bears fans are going to be pissed off, but the McCaskies have never fired a coach in season. I don't think if they're embarrassed at home, absolutely embarrassed. Again, we just saw that 2 weeks ago or against the Patriots. It's what's it going to take for the McCaskies to pull the trigger? I don't even know. Is it an embarrassing loss on Thanksgiving in front of the entire world against the Lions? Maybe.
No, because the Lions are, they're the talk of, they're the cream of the NFL, so that's kind of expected, if we at least show up, but hey, the Vikings, to go 0-2, and obviously seemingly 0-3 coming up, staring 0-3 in the division. That's just unacceptable. So especially with both of them being at home, right?
Yeah.
That's horrible.
It's just interesting because Matthew Collar actually talked about this on his podcast too. A lot of people have been. The perception of the Lions, and they are kicking everyone's ass. They are.
Mm-hmm.
The Vikings lost to them by 2 this year.
Mm-hmm.
And the Vikings, if they convert a 4th down, they win that game. And then we're just talking about these two teams completely differently. The margins are that thin.
Mm-hmm.
So it's I get it. That's your perspective as a Bears fan. You're seeing the cream of the crop, and they are. The Lions are the cream of the crop. I just don't see the Vikings as that far below them. They can beat the Lions. If the Vikings played the Lions 10 times, they probably win 3 or 4 times. The Lions take the majority of those games. But this is a good Vikings team that can beat that team. And so
we had a bad game plan defensively against them, and so still almost.
This is what's happening is not only you, but fans of every other team. They just focus on Sam Darnold, and they just can't get that out of the back of their mind that Sam Darnold equals bad. And that's not – his quarterback rating this year is 100. Caleb Williams is 82.3. Again, rookie versus vet, and good, talented team versus non-as-talented team in terms of offensive line, bad OC, all that kind of stuff that we talked about. But it's Sam Darnold's playing pretty well. And I think that the nation just hasn't seen him enough, I guess, like playing well. They just see the interception talk, I guess, about him.
Yeah,
So,
well, I mean, his
bad
stats
games.
his stats were padded early on, right? I mean, you look at you know what his oh gosh, I have the breakdown wise, but I mean,
he started
MVP.
hot.
Yeah, and I heard MVP, and now obviously not hearing that. So when you look at all right, so yeah, I mean, well, obviously versus the Jaguars, the 3 interceptions, but
Yeah.
you know, I mean, you're right. I think narratives can change. I mean, really quickly. I mean, I was always, and I'm not sure if you guys were a fan, but I was always a fan of Kirk Cousins. And like, if he had just, advanced further on in the playoffs, I mean, the narrative would have changed just like that, right? And so I think, if the Vikings do continue to win, if they win this week, they might start to be talked about a little bit more.
They'll be a 9-2 football team. I mean,
and
we were kind of surprised that they're not talked about as much as they are.
Well, but that's the thing. I think the Packers, the Packers fans are loud and chirpy, and they shouldn't be. They're really not that good. Like I was, going in on Twitter. They were saying, I mean, if you're saying the Bears still suck, I'm like, okay, well, then you do too, right? I mean, you shouldn't have won that game.
Yeah.
Barely did, and so like I think Packer fans always think they're better than they are, and so. I do think the Vikings are a good team. I don't think they're quite there yet, but yeah, I mean, when you look at it too, I mean, some of the players they lost defensively last year, right? I mean, I guess Brian Flores is just really that good, right?
He's damn good, dude.
Yeah. So coaching matters offensively and defensively. I think
it's something we didn't have with Zimmer is that he couldn't keep good coaches around or get them to come, and he had like guys that were older that were trying to make it back in, back in the league and stuff. Or we had 3 father-son duos on our team at one point, to now where we got an offensive guy. The only probably stain on his record is not that he hired Ed Donatel, but he didn't fire him in the bye week in 2022. Might have had a different scenario in the playoffs if we got rid of him at that point. But he's the coaching staff we've assembled. It's just deep with really good coaches. We've improved our offensive line with the same freaking talent. With the coaching there, our receivers are just ridiculous because our receiver coach is awesome. And then, obviously, the cream of the crop is the fact that he recruited and got, because he had a relationship with him while he was a quarterback at the Patriots, Brian Flores, and he got him to come here and take his name out of the Cardinals job. So it's crazy that one guy you can kind of get that talent. And like I think you think Eberflus doesn't have that where hey, I want to come coach for Eberflus. There's not going to be an Eberflus coaching tree, No.
So I'm gonna pick the game here after that long rambling. But that's good. We've had great discussion on this show. It's been awesome. Personally, I do believe that the Vikings defense is going to be too much for this Bears offense to truly overcome. But with that said, there is a caveat that I could see either defense scoring in this game. I really could. If the Bears score a defensive touchdown, I think they win the game. If the Vikings score a defensive touchdown, I think they win the game. So who gets that defensive touchdown? Kevin O'Connell's been fantastic in terms of winning percentage if he ties or wins the turnover battle. So if the Vikings win the turnover battle, I'm picking the Vikings. And in this case, I do think that they have a solid chance of at least tying it, just because this defense does force turnovers at a greater rate than any other defense. They do pressure the quarterback at a higher rate than any other defense. So I do see the Bears turning over the football at least once or so. So I'm going to pick a 13-16 game. I'll be a homer. I'll say it's the Vikings with the 16, but with the caveat of saying this could easily be the Bears with the 16. Like, I truly see this game as a toss-up. Who's going to make less mistakes? The team that does that, I think, wins the football game.
Yeah, in the past, I've always been worried about Justin Fields making those fumbles, and Caleb could have a fumble, right? And the way he kind of holds the ball. I mean, yeah, I'm a little worried about that as well. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, this defense is it's going to be a tough test for a rookie.
For sure. And you mentioned, the Bears going to have to run the football and keep the game easy. And again, this is the number one rushing defense in the NFL, only allowing 74. So it's a lot of 1 yard, 1 yard, 1 yard, and hope that you get that big pop, which you might with Swift. That's what you kind of have to do. You can just stick with it and stay consistent. But this, in my head, the way I see this game playing out, I just see a really tough time for the Bears offense. But if I'm wrong, if that Bears offense is able to move the ball against this defense, Bears are going to win the game. This is the only way I see it, because then Sam Darnold's going to have to feel like he has to move the football, and he's going to throw at least 1 or 2 picks.
And I think we talked about this. So we were looking forward to playing Anthony Richardson this year, and we didn't get to see him, and we thought we would just confuse the hell out of him. I said this in our last show, is that's what, we've been waiting for, is that rookie quarterback that we could get a go against that holds the ball too long, and then we can confuse with the different fronts, and bringing everybody up to the line and dropping and playing cover 2. We've been surprising the shit out of people,
especially against the Bears offensive line. I just think they're going to struggle.
Yeah, and they obviously have, most of the season. And I think what you saw, last week was Caleb was getting the ball out a lot faster, lot faster. And that was obviously something they must have worked on during the week. I mean, it just has to happen. And I think when you have a new coach coming in, obviously, yeah, you have the bump. So hopefully it's not just a 1-game bump from my perspective.
Absolutely.
Let's do this. You can kind of rate our over-unders, and you can throw an over in there too, but we don't count you. So Justin Jefferson, I'll go first. I said over. He's just due.
The man lives on the over. He
missed it by a half yard last week.
But the last 2 of the 3 weeks, he's hit the under. Yeah, by a half yard, Dave just said. Now, we brought up earlier what Justin was saying about he doesn't seem like as excited to go up against corners as corners are to go up against him, because he understands that it's never one-on-one for him. He's always got 2-3 sets of eyes on him. So his job is tough. He usually kills defense. His favorite route is the dig route. He'll go over the middle with that. He's not afraid to do that. He can win the comeback routes. He can do everything because he's Justin Jefferson. But look for the deep dig route. Is that an area of the field where, I mean, the Bears pass defense has been fantastic all year round, but right behind the linebackers, middle of the defense, is that an area where you've seen the Bears have been really, is there an area of their pass defense where you're like, oh shit, I keep seeing this pop up?
That's how Addison got his touchdown last week.
Yeah, I see Addison actually having a bigger game than Jefferson, honestly, because Jaden Reed was kind of that, versus when the Packers, and just, he had that kind of ability and just beyond the linebackers. Yeah, I think Justin Jefferson is going to get his yards. I think he's maybe 75, something like that. He might have a touchdown. But I think Addison
he doesn't got many.
He started out, I think, first 3 games he went
really
3
good
in a row, and I think that's been it. It's been a dry spell for him. But when we get in the red zone, teams are
one of the best things I've ever heard described about him is that he changes the weather. He changes how he affects the weather. He affects the defense so much.
Oh, absolutely.
That other guys eat.
Bears actually have one of the better red zone defenses, by the way. So
not good for us. That's where we throw picks.
The Vikings, I think, offensively or defensively in the red zone that's like the worst part of their defense. If you can get it in the red zone, that's like the one blip on their radar where they are giving up. I think they're like 17th in the league, so they're like average-ish.
Aaron Jones, Bear Killer, aka Bear Killer. What do you got on us, Doc?
Well, it's a run funnel of a defense, right? That's typically what you try to do against the Bears. Aaron Jones has, like you said, has been pretty good against the Bears in the past, despite us not having the best run blocking offensive line. I just think that Kevin O'Connell is going to realize in a game like this that you can't throw the ball 40 times at Darnold or you will lose. So they're going to try to run the football. I think 61 is actually kind of a low number for this game. I would put him closer to 80.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to feed him. We do feed him. I think he got injured 2 games ago, but I think this last game showed he was completely healthy. That he will get, his 15 to 18 touches again. Obviously, it would be, if we were saying with receiving, it would be easy. But I'm going off that his mom misses seeing him in the end zone, and we don't get too many long runs. Which sucks. This is crazy. We're one of the worst teams at getting 20+ yard runs, but we feed him enough that he could have 40 by half, and then he, hopefully in my scenario, he's closing out the game. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, with the what the Bears have given up versus the run, he's definitely going to have over 61.5. Obviously, it just
you heard it here first, folks.
Unless he gets injured, which is a possibility. He's been fighting a rib injury.
Didn't want to say
you heard it. Yeah. Translate. Bears are terrible.
It's been happening every single game where he'll get dinged up, like literally every game, and then he comes in somehow not on the injury report every single week.
It's crazy. Yeah,
Aaron Jones experience.
Jordan Addison. Skoldock has no faith in him whatsoever. He told me off air that he's not even going to get a catch. I'm kidding.
No, but
go ahead.
J.A.'s been the forgotten guy in the offense so far this year.
3-3.
Free 3. But last game he did, it was the Tennessee game. He did have a big game before he went out with cramps, and maybe that continues. My thought process was this is a very good pass defense. Vikings probably try to run the ball a lot. JJ usually gets his. If there's an odd man out, it's probably going to be Jordan Addison or TJ Hawkinson. I'm just going to be safe and pick the under on both of them. I'll probably hit one of them.
I'm going over. Jefferson changes the weather. I think Andy thinks another guy's going to have a big game. You even said it, that Addison might have a bigger game than Justin. 38.5 is low. 2 catches could get this in this game, I think. But yeah, that's my thoughts. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, I do agree. I think, Jordan Addison, I think is going to have probably maybe, I don't know, 85 or so yards. I think he's still going to they're going to try to
most of the year.
Yeah. So I think, it's going to be interesting defense wise. I think, the Bears have been able will allow teams to drive down, but then they stiffen up. So I think they're going to get a lot of yards kind of in between the 20s, right? And just there's going to be a lot of field goals.
And the Vikings are really good between the 20s, and then they find a way to throw it to a
we're awesome between the 20s
in the red zone. Like that's been the story.
Early on, we were punching it in though. Jesus.
Yeah, we were pretty good early on.
So TJ Hawkinson, I got going over. It's his 3rd game. He's getting ramped up. We've been over 60 plays now. We're getting into 67. We had 80 one game. We're starting to have a lot more plays, which we weren't known for. You could tell that O'Connell is very cognizant of this and has made the change that we're a lot of plays. And who's better at short yardage or up the middle or and again Justin Jefferson changing the weather than Hawkinson. We do not have a Josh Oliver this week that's been stealing catches from him. So yeah, I think 36.5 is easy.
2 things. So his snap percentage has remained kind of consistent at about 38-40% and has not gone up yet. This is a tough field condition typically with bad turf. This is a very physical defense. They have good linebackers with TJ Edwards and Terrell Edmonds. Is that his name?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's big, fast dude. So I just took the under again, just thinking that I picked the under on Sam Darnold with pass yards. This is a guy that they like to find on 3rd down for like those 5 yards here and there. So he could have like 5 catches for 30 yards and still hit the under type of game. Happy if I'm wrong, but I just see this as the under.
Yeah, I'm going to go under too. So
terrible picks by both of you.
It's too much thought.
I'm hedging my bets. I'm going to be wrong with 1, but I'm going to be right with 3 of them. Of the 3 receivers and the quarterback. Caleb Williams Levis. I did not change the Will Levis from last week.
Oh,
So
God.
Caleb Williams, Levis, 205.5 yards.
Yeah.
I picked.
Don't you put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
Yeah.
Hell, you hope he plays like Levis did.
Levis didn't play bad.
It's pretty good
He
last
didn't play
week,
bad.
anyways.
He didn't play great. He kind of took what the defense gave him at times, but he needed to do more to win that game. But anyways,
there were some throws that got called back because of penalties, not being on the line of all things.
So I took the under on this one. We talked about it earlier. I just think that's rookie quarterbacks, Brian Flores, the number one pressure defense in the league. I think it's going to be a lot of like short, quick stuff, not necessarily deep bombs. And I think that even though he may get a lot of completions, the yardage may not be there. So I'm going to take the under on the Caleb Williams 205.
I'm going over. They're going to try like their hardest fourth quarter to come back. And Flores is pretty well known to, bend but don't break if we got a lead. So he's going to get the 205. I picked the under on Will Levis last week. I was so bad. So yeah, I'm going to go over with Caleb Williams this week.
I'm going over too. I'm going to say 250 yards on for him. So obviously not crazy over, but I think just the progression that he's made within the offense and just what mainly what I think DJ Moore is able to do with yards after the catch, and also then Rome Odunze, how he's really kind of emerging as top receiving threat as well within the offense. So those two players, and then obviously if Keenan Allen plays, I mean. You add him in there, I just think he's going to get to 250.
Yeah, so I just looked last week. He went 23 of 31 for 231 and 3 sacks against the Packers in that new offensive coordinator game. I probably should have changed my answer to over as well, given that information, because I do think that the Packers have a pretty good secondary, decent pass defense there. But I don't know. The Vikings have absolutely demolished some quarterbacks earlier this year. I forget who we were talking to. Oh, it was that Jaguars game. We played Mac Jones, and I said 190 over under. That's such a low number.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way. He's got to throw over that, and he threw for like 130 yards or something.
We dominated the Indian Jags so bad. It's just not on the scoreboard. It was just insane.
So I could see a game like that where it's just like, whoa, that was bad. But yeah, I mean, we're going off of just one game sample size with the new OC. So I'd probably say I should have picked the over. The number's probably closer to 220.
And Andy has no faith in him. Only picked him for 250. You think you'd have a little more faith in his quarterback? I'm kidding.
We don't need to. It's going to be a running game.
See, and that was the other thing I was thinking is it's going to be such, I think, in my opinion, a close game, back and forth. Not a lot of first downs here and there. A lot of punting. That just doesn't equate to a ton of yards necessarily for either sides. But
how is your punter, by the way?
Watch. He's damn good, dude.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I saw you had that. You had a punting highlight reel mid-season. That was awesome. What a thing to put out there by your team. Hey, look at our punter.
Watch us all be wrong, and this is just an absolute track meet, like 41-38.
Yeah. Sam Darnold. Both of us do the under, even though I picked all three pass catchers getting the over. And those are the only three guys who are going to catch passes this game, and it's Sam Darnold's going to hit the under.
Yeah, you're threading a needle there.
Hey, one guy's going to be off. I'm going to get hit the other three.
Great pass defense, low-scoring game. O'Connell's going to know that you don't want to throw picks in this game. They're going to try to run that ball quite a bit, so I took the under.
I'm going to say under as well, just barely, though. I think it'll probably maybe 218, 220.
Didn't he miss last week by a couple yards?
It was literally like, it was really close.
Yeah, it was like 2 yards or something like that.
Let me ask you this. Caleb Williams only throwing 5 interceptions on the year. Do you have plus or minus 0.5 interceptions for him this week against the Vikings?
Oh, that is a great one. It's going to be tough because obviously Flores is a tough defense, and he does a lot of different things. I'm going to say under. I don't think he's going to throw a pick. I think he might throw a lot of kind of incompletions, but no picks. I think his incompletions lately have more, been short or, just airmail it out of bounds or something like that. So when he's confused by the defense, I think he's just going to throw it away or throw it low. And so he's kind of gotten better at that. So I don't think he's going to throw a pick this week.
Yeah. The Vikings are, I think, number 1 in the NFL with interceptions in the league. And there's a quarterback that really tries not to make mistakes. So I could see that. That's an interesting one. I thought I'd look up. I was trying to pull up the odds, but I can't find that. That's okay. So any other closing remarks you gentlemen wanted to make before we wrap this up?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, this is a huge game for the Bears. It's a huge game for just our franchise. I mean, it's been a disappointment so far, and this has to be some type of statement. If we just get embarrassed in this game, I mean, we have not fired a coach midseason, but I think it's pretty close. If we get embarrassed in this game, if it's not close, Eberflus has to be gone, and we just have to, move on that much quicker. So it's huge, and obviously, if the Bears do win this game and get some type of momentum, that's going to help Caleb Williams. It's going to help the offense just get some type of confidence, and it's going to only springboard further on. So.
Yeah, I agree. It's a big game for both teams here. Vikings trying to keep pace with the Lions. This is the 3rd game in a 3-game road stretch for the Vikings. So there's a lot of little factors here that kind of point to the Bears. This is kind of a trap game for us. They point to the Bears pulling out the victory here. But it's a big one because the Vikings can win this one. They go home. I think the Vikings have 4 games at US Bank in December. So really setting up nice for the Vikings to have a nice, strong finish and aim for that 1 seed and hope somehow that the Lions can falter.
Yeah, for me, there's a lot to do with Flores. I think after like the Lions, and then after this game, I think this last game, I think he got caught on his heels a couple of times where, that he learns from his mistakes. Like he got a little too cocky in this last game. He got a little too cocky early with the Lions game, blitzing them the first half. I think he learns from his mistakes. I think he's going to go back to what we were good at, and I think that's going to be the difference. Is I feel like Flores is just going to be honed in on this game. I don't think he does back-to-back bad games. He hasn't this year. So, and even though it wasn't that bad, we only gave up a little over 300 yards. It still wasn't that bad, but he was giving up 160 against the Jaguars. So I feel like giving up like a 98-yard reception, and I just think he's learned from that. He's going to bounce back, and it's defense is going to be honed in. They're going to get like 230, 250 yards. All of them apparently is going to come from Caleb throwing.
It's going to be a fun game. We know that anything can happen at Soldier Field. All bets are off at Soldier Field.
Bets are off.
It's a nightmare scenario for the Vikings over the years, but it's brought a lot of memorable games, a lot of ugly games to the memory. But Andy, thank you so much for joining us. This is a great episode. I mean, we've been talking for an hour and 12 minutes. Time has flown by.
That's our longest time.
So long.
The record.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
But we're definitely going to have you back. Love to having you, and good luck tomorrow. This episode is going to air on Saturday, so good luck tomorrow to your Bears.
Well, it is Saturday, so
exactly. We're recording at 12:30 in the morning right now. We're just
1:30 here.
Yeah.
All
right.
But
all right, man. We'll catch you next. And everyone, if you're not already following NFL Outdated on Twitter, it's at NFL Outdated on Twitter. He's got a ton of followers. He's pumping out a lot of great content. Please go ahead, go give him a follow. And we will have you back soon, my friend.
Thanks again. Appreciate it.
School Vikes.